Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to take a nice little slow flow today. So, focusing on drawing the awareness inwards, focusing on your breath, your body, how the poses feel to you, how maybe you'd like to adjust the poses. If maybe there's a little pain, a little ache or something today, the energy's a little bit low. Just listening to your inner wisdom. How do you want to adjust the pose today? How do you want to take your practice a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, maybe a little bit slower, maybe backing off and giving your body a little bit of love and care. So we'll get started in our child's pose today. So knees nice and wide to the edges of the mat, big toes touching. Now walk our hands all the way forward, chest and forehead to the mat. Take a few breaths here, just grounding down the body, allowing the breath to be nice and long. Maybe feeling the inhale in those back ribs. A nice, full, long, deep exhale. Starting to drop away anything outside the room. Starting to draw that awareness inwards. Just focusing on your breath, your body, and your mat. And take 2 more full deep breaths in your child's pose. We'll slowly make our way towards tabletop. So coming up, maybe adjusting knees under hips, wrists under shoulders, trying to lengthen that spine first, that crown forward, the chin pulling into the body, belly button in, and tailbone pulling back. So nice and long and strong in that spine here. And then we're going to start to bring a little bit of movement with your breath. Your inhale takes you to cow, so dropping that belly, tail, and crown lift up. Exhaling, starting to arch the spine, pushing into the hands, looking towards the belly. Inhale, coming to your cow. And exhaling into cat. Maybe this time starting to add in some extra little movement side to side if your body needs that. Any little twists, pulses. Just really noticing what your body's calling for today. So our normal cat and cow is very static in that one plane of movement, just forward and back, but we can add in all these other planes of movements and extra twists and rolling of the spine. One last full deep breath, any version of cat and cow. And slowly coming to downward dog, tucking those toes under, lifting the hips all the way up. We want our ears between the biceps. Nice firm pressure into the fingers, drawing those heels down towards the ground and that tailbone up. Maybe again, bringing any little movements you need into this pose, maybe a little walking out of the dog, a little wiggle of the hips, maybe a little pulsing of the shoulders, maybe rolling of the shoulders so they can slowly melt down the back. Bending those knees so we can set our gaze forward, walking all the way to the top of the mat. Ragdoll. Grabbing opposite elbows, either staying here or swaying. So sway might be side to side, might be little figure 8 movements, might be pulsing up and down, nodding, shaking that head yes and no. Again, just taking any little movements you need to warm up your body, trying to get that crown down and that tail up. One last full deep breath here. Slowly releasing those elbows and rolling up vertebra by vertebra. And taking the hands overhead, arms by your side. We'll slowly add in a little bit of a back bend in our Tadasana, our mountain pose, hands overhead. Maybe starting to pull that sternum up, so we don't want to kink that lower back, poke the belly out. That's not a safe back bend for our lower back. We want to try and bring the sternum up, torso pulling out of those hip sockets. Shoulders still trying to draw together on the back, lower ribs knitting in, and back through center. Another little back bend here, coming back just as far as your back allows today. So we want that space in the lower back, maybe a little bend in the knees, coming back up. And last time, little back bend. And coming back to center. Taking that side to side movement. So we'll inhale, hands above us. Just hooking those thumbs, and we'll slowly go all the way towards the right. Trying to draw the torso out of the hips. So sideways, nice and long. We're not kinking and dropping into one sideways, but both sideways, drawing out of the hips. Slowly coming back through center and off to the left. Back through center. Releasing those arms. I'll take a nice slow sun salutation A. So inhaling, hands above your head. And exhaling, hinging at those hips, folding all the way down. Halfway lift. Exhaling to fold down and step back. Lower the knees for a modified high plank. And then coming through your chaturanga. We'll take a modified back bend. So we'll take a baby cobra, just those upper ribs off the mat. Maybe hovering those hands. So we're starting to activate the upper body. So we're using our back muscles here, not our hands to hold us. The shoulder blades trying to draw in nice and tight. And hands down, rolling over the knees. Downward dog. We come to stillness in our dog a little bit quicker. So that first dog, we kind of move the whole time. As we move through the practice, finding the poses a little bit quicker. So we've warmed up our body. We know where we're going. We can settle in a little bit. Slowly bending the knees so we can set the gaze forward, walking all the way towards the top. Halfway lift. Exhaling to fold. And raising all the way up to standing, hands above us, stretching out. And hands by our side. 2 more times, inhaling. And exhaling, folding forward. Halfway lift. Exhaling through chaturanga, step or jump back. Coming into your back bend, maybe cobra now. And pulling back to downward dog. One last full breath. Bending those knees, take your gaze forward, walk or hop. Halfway lift. Folding down. And raising all the way to standing. Hands by our side. Another round, last round. Inhaling, hands above us. Exhaling, trying to hinge at those hips as far as we can. Halfway lift, lengthening spine. Exhaling, chaturanga, step or jump. Back bend. Maybe slowly coming into upward dog. Downward dog. Two more full breaths. Bending those knees so our gaze goes forward, walk or hop. Halfway lift. Exhaling to fold. And raising up. Hands by our side. Starting to mix up the flow, inhaling hands above. Exhaling, hinging at the hips. Halfway lift. Exhaling, downward dog. Right arm comes back to left ankle twist, looking under the left underarm, trying to get all the way towards the ceiling. A little bit into that left knee as much as you need. Right hand places down, right leg raises, bending the knee, opening the hip, trying to get that right knee as high to the ceiling as we can, kicking that left bottom. Tiger curl, knee to nose. Right leg all the way back up. Stepping forward, Anjayasana, left knee down, raising that torso up. Keeping the torso over that left knee, nice and strong in the legs. Biceps by the ears, arms reaching up. Grabbing opposite elbows, ragdoll arms. Maybe a little back bend here, just trying to reach that sternum up, so we're pulling the torso out of the hip bones. Then maybe dropping the hips, straightening the arms, full back bend. Ardha Hanumanasana. Adjusting the stance if you need to. Trying to lengthen that spine. Right toes pulling back towards you, trying to square those hips, right thigh bone jaws back into the hip socket. Slowly right sole of the foot down, hands plant, flowing through. Maybe 3-point plank. Back bend. And back to downward dog. Slowly left hand wants to come off the mat towards right ankle. Downward dog twist. Maybe a little bend in that right knee, looking all the way under that right underarm, trying to get gaze towards the ceiling. Left hand down. Left leg towards the sky. Bending the knee, opening the hip. Trying to keep those shoulders square, that right thigh bone pulling back away from the torso. Tiger curl, knee to nose. Right leg comes all the way back up. Anjayasana. Left foot steps down, right knee down. Coming all the way up, stacking torso and knee. Nice pressure on that left foot. Ragdoll arms. Can you grab the opposite elbow, so the other one you did from last time, the weird way? Slowly taking that little bit of back bend. So first just lifting the sternum, lifting the torso out of the hips. And then maybe dropping hips down, straightening arms, adding a little bit more of that bend in the back. Ardha Hanumanasana. Try and draw that left thigh back into the body, straightening the legs, straightening the spine as much as we can. If we're starting to feel a little bit of pinching in this lower back, we can take a bend in this front knee. One last breath. Slowly sole the foot down, hands down, maybe 3-point plank to flow through. Your back bend. And back to downward dog. Slowly right leg raises towards the sky, long and strong. Then bending the knee, opening the hip. Tiger curl, knee to nose. Right leg comes all the way back up. Right foot outside right pinky, lizard lunge. Either staying with left knee off the ground to strengthen or left knee down to stretch into the hips. Either version, that spine's trying to get nice and long. If you've got the space, you can drop onto the forearms. Trying to keep those hips nice and square. So notice if that left hip's dropping down, we draw that up, lengthen the spine. We're coming into our winged lizard, either staying on the forearms or raising back up. So our winged lizard, those right toes, we're going to walk out to the edge of the mat. Slowly point those toes out to 45. Roll onto that knife edge. Notice what's happening to the ankle. We're getting all these little creases in the ankle. Can we lengthen that out so the ankle's working? It's all nice and strong. Maybe we don't get as deep or that knee doesn't come as far away. Noticing what's happening to that left hip again. Has that poked all the way out? Can we draw those hips in so they're nice and square? We're just trying to take this movement from the hip joint only. One last breath. We're slowly going to come into our side angle pose. So that right foot wants to come back towards that first position, toes pointing forward, knee in towards the shoulder. Lifting left knee off the ground, pivoting the foot down. Right hand stays on the ground or block, left arm up. Trying to stack shoulder above shoulder, hand above hand. Notice if the crown of the head's reaching towards that top left corner of the mat. Can we draw it towards the center, drawing the tailbone towards the center as well? So the spine's in one long line. One last full deep breath here. Slowly trying to keep the upper body where it is. We're coming into triangle pose, shooting that tailbone back, straightening that front leg, adjusting that front hand if you need to. Two options here, either hand hovers, so it's nice and light, or we place it on our block. We want to avoid pushing it into the shin, because if we push into the shin, it's going to start to hyperflex that knee. So block or hover. Hover is going to start to use this side waist a little bit more. So notice what's happening to that side waist. Are we kind of closing it off and we're arching, we're bending, we're creating all these little rolls and joining the rib and the hip? Can we lengthen both out? So both side waists are nice and long and strong and working. Reversing our triangle, this top left hand draws us all the way up, paint the ceiling with that front hand. And slowly coming to half moon, grabbing this block with our right hand on the way up, little bend in that front knee. As many hops as we need with that back foot. Trying to land with the right hand, that block, underneath our shoulder. Flexing that left foot so this left leg's nice and engaged. That's how it's going to stay in space. And just noticing, drawing the awareness inwards, where is our body in space? So is this left leg way back behind our hip? Maybe is it way forward and we're arching and closing? Trying to draw that heel, that left heel in line with the crown. So we're kind of pushing away with that left heel and pushing away with that crown. Maybe opening up that chest a little bit more. Maybe a little micro bend in that standing knee. Maybe adding on our sugarcane pose. So we're slowly kicking left foot back towards our bottom, reaching that top left hand. Can we find that foot? Can we hold on to that foot? Trying not to let that left knee come up above the hip line. Either staying here or maybe adding that little bit of a back bend into the pose. So we're gently kicking that left foot away from the torso or away from the bottom. So this takes more weight behind us. You might come a little bit more unbalanced. So taking it slow, keeping the breath. Gently releasing back to half moon. Coming to your second warrior. And then hands come down, flowing through or resting. Checking in with your energy levels if we progress through class, staying in your downward dog for a few breaths. So as we start to flow, we start to do some energetic poses. Does your energy level drop? Do you lose the form in your chaturanga? We're dropping into the shoulders, we're arching. Noticing what's happening in your body. If we're starting to lose the form, but we just want to, it's the ego holding us there. It's the ego telling us to keep doing the pose. Can we notice? Can we adjust? Maybe backing off on the pose a little bit. Taking the variations, a chaturanga with the knees on the ground. Maybe a lower back bend. We've got our second side. So if you're in child's pose, coming back up to downward dog. Slowly left leg towards the sky. Bending the knee, opening the hip. Tiger curl, knee to nose. Left leg all the way back up. Left foot outside, left pinky, lizard lunge. So staying with that right knee off the mat to strengthen, drawing both thigh bones into the hip socket, or right knee down, dropping the pelvis straight down to stretch. Either version, torso wants to reach forward, crown forward. If you've got space for either version, coming onto the forearms. If you're coming onto the forearms, still trying to keep that spine long. So notice if you're arching and rounding, try and get those elbows down, just come back up onto the hands. Try and draw that crown forward, that chin drawing in. So notice what's happening to the head. Are we getting technique? We're facing or dropping that chin forward. We're going to draw that chin in, crown forward. Slowly taking it to our winged lizard, either staying on the forearms or coming back up. So this does change the stretch in the hip. Just heel toeing the toes out to the side, 45-degree angle, then coming onto that knife edge, making sure we're getting rid of all those creases in the ankles, so the ankle's working. Notice what happens to the right hip. Does it drop all the way down towards the right? Can we draw it back in? Maybe that wing doesn't get out quite as far once we've got those hips square. We slowly want to come towards that side angle pose. So we're heel toeing that left foot all the way back in, left hand plants by left foot. Come on this side. That right foot comes all the way down. Tailbone pointing straight to the back of the mat. Right arm up. One side might be a little bit different to the other. Adjusting. Trying to stack shoulder above shoulder, wrist above wrist. So we don't want that hand going way back in space. Trying to lengthen both side waists again so they're both long. We don't want to close off an arch in that bottom one. Triangle pose. So slowly sending tailbone back. Notice what's happened to that top body, the torso. Have we changed that as we've straightened that front leg? Do we need a block with that hand? So we're either hovering with that left hand or we're using the block to push in. Noticing what's happening with that front knee. Is it hyperextended? Just a little gentle bend. So the gentle bend is going to actually make us work the muscles more in the leg. Reversing our triangle, coming all the way up, keeping that front leg nice and straight. And coming down for our half moon, grabbing the block on the way down. As many hops as we need with this back right leg, especially if the mat's a little bit slippery. Flexing that right foot, so it's like we're standing on the back wall, we're engaging this top right leg. Trying to get this left hand, the block underneath our shoulder. Maybe opening the chest a little bit so we can stack shoulder above shoulder, lengthening both side waists. Once you've got your breath and you're nice and steady, maybe coming into your sugar cane pose, trying to kick your bottom with this right leg. Do we know where our body is in space? Can we get this right hand to reach? Ooh, this side, maybe not. Can we get the right hand to reach towards that right foot? Holding onto the foot. Trying to keep that knee in line with the hip so we don't want that knee splaying all the way up towards the ceiling. If you've got your balance, your breath, maybe adding that little bit of a back bend, kicking that foot away as we bring the foot away from the body, so further behind us. It's going to throw us off balance, so keeping that breath nice and steady. Slowly, half moon. Second warrior, quietly, gently. Windmilling hands down to flow through. Noticing your energy level, adjusting. So staying with your full chaturanga, your three-legged chaturanga, or you can take the knees down version. We'll slowly drop down to child's pose. Chest, forehead tries to reach down. Taking a few breaths here, gathering up that breath. Noticing if it's shortened. Can we lengthen it back out? Can we get it as long as it was in that first child's pose at the start of class? We can take a little bit of a flow between our high plank child's pose. So we'll come to our downward dog, tucking those toes under, lifting the hips all the way up.
So we're going to come all the way forward to our high plank, either straight back or little wave to come forward. Push back to our child's pose. Hover those knees. Hover those knees. Don't let them touch the mat. Downward dog. Inhale forward, either straight back or wave. Child's pose. Downward dog. High plank. Child's pose. Hover the knees. Downward dog. High plank. Child's pose. Downward dog. One last time. High plank. Child's pose. Downward dog. Few breaths here. Noticing how that feels in your body. What did you do? Do you automatically go to flat back, keeping everything tight and straight? You go to rounded and little fluid wave-like motion in the back. Just noticing what you do. We all have a tendency to go one way or the other. Maybe noticing this time and next time, trying to go a different way, trying to go the way your body doesn't automatically go. If we're taking things which is a little bit out of our comfort zone, this is where we start to grow, where we start to improve in the body. We'll slowly lift that right leg towards the sky, long and strong, bending the knee, opening the hip, tiger curl, knee to nose. Right leg all the way back up. Coming forward towards our half pigeon, keep the leg into the chest though. So we want to drop it down and bring it back up. Drop it down, bring it back up. One last time, drop, bring it up, let go. A little bit of core and ab work. Setting up for our half pigeon, using blocks under hips or thigh if you need to try and square those hips or bring the ground a little bit closer towards us. Once we've set up the blocks, the knee, right knee outside our rib cage, slowly trying to bring belly, chest, chin, forehead down one line. So we're not fully into our rest yet. We've still got a little bit of active, so we're not holding this pose too long. Lengthening out that breath. This is our active recovery. 2 more breaths. Janu Shavasana, so body comes up. Tilting onto that right hip, moving the block if you have a block under it. Trying to keep this left leg as straight as we can. Bring it all the way forward, Janu Shavasana. Adjusting if you need to. Right foot comes into thigh rather than knee. Moving fleshy parts away, lifting the torso up, turning that torso over that left leg. You want to lift the body up and over. Any pain, strain in that lower back, bending that left knee to come forward. Hands can rest anywhere they can touch. We don't want to force them towards the foot. We don't want to curl and arch in that upper back. Nice long spine. Noticing where you're feeling it on this side. So both sides will be a little bit different, will be a little bit tighter in some areas than the other. So I know my left side is my tight side, especially in these kind of forward fold positions. It can be quite tough on this side. Coming all the way up. We'll take our side lying one here now. Let me turn a little bit. So I want that left hand towards right knee, right hand all the way up. So before we had the chest facing left leg, now we want the chest and body facing right knee. Right arm all the way up and over, trying to reach towards these left toes. And again, that torso the sideways. So we don't want to kink and bend and close and create all these little rolls and pockets in towards the sideways. So we want to lengthen so everything's nice and long, the ribs drawing away from that hip bone as we come down. So we're trying to get that waist, the ribs, the shoulder all touching at the same time. And again, noticing where you are in space. Are you reaching for that foot? Are you reaching all the way in a different direction? Do we have that body awareness? Slowly coming up. Double pigeon, taking that left leg on top, adjusting with the hand if you need.
ankle above knee, knee above ankle. Maybe using a block if the knee is quite far away, just popping that block in. And then hinging at those hips coming forward. Maybe noticing this double pigeon, you feel it slightly different spot to the normal pigeon. Maybe one's a little bit easier than the other. Slowly coming all the way back up. We want to make our way back towards pigeon. So you should be towards the front of your mat. That right foot still, or right shin, still relatively parallel to the top of the mat. This left leg is in double pigeon. Can we not use our hands? Taking this left leg straight. We want to use the hip flexor. Take it all the way back. Pigeon, place the hands down, downward dog. Any last little adjustments if that left foot's a little bit off the mat, just bringing it back in. Little wiggle, shake of the hips, the tail. And second side, left leg up towards the ceiling. Bend the knee, open the hip. Tiger curl, knee to nose. Left leg all the way back up, opening the hip. Bring that leg in for pigeon pose, keeping that into our chest though. Dropping the leg down, bring it back up. Dropping leg down, bring it back up. One last time, just tap, up, now place down. Just a little bit to work that core, bring that leg in and out and working that hip flexor. Working the muscles around the hip. Setting up with blocks if we need a block under that left hip, if it's way off the ground, if we need it for that right thigh, if we're tilting all the way towards one side. And then we want to try and hinge from those hips to come forward. So keeping that spine nice and long. We want the belly, the chest, the forehead to try and touch the ground at the same time. So allowing this to be a active recovery. To lengthen the breath. But still work in the body. So we're not flopping into the pose. We're still pushing that back foot into the mat. That right foot's pushing in nice and firm. Spine's lengthening, that belly's drawing in. That left thigh bone trying to draw back into the hip socket to help square the hips off. Slowly coming up. Janushirasana. So moving the block under the left hip if you had one. Left hip down, right leg nice and straight. Bring it all the way forward. Just adjusting if that left foot ends up in the knee joint. Moving the fleshy parts away, again, trying to lengthen the spine, turning that torso towards that right leg, right toes back towards you, and then trying to pick your torso up and then over. Coming all the way down. So letting the hands drop wherever they can so the shoulders aren't up by our ears, but the drawing down the back of the spine is nice and long, lower ribs knitting in so we're nice and engaged in the belly. Maybe noticing this side's a little bit different to the other. One side we might get a little bit lower. One side we might feel it in our back a little bit more. The other we might feel it in our leg. Just noticing, there's no judgment. We're all a little bit different and we're all a little bit uneven. It's just how we live our life day to day. It builds these little bit of unevenness in the body. Slowly coming up, we want to take that side bend version. So turning the torso towards that left knee, right hand to left knee, and then left arm all the way up and over, trying to lengthen the body. So we're placing waist, ribs, shoulder towards that leg. We don't want to drop down and close that waist off and create all these little rolls. We don't want the ribs to touch the hip. And noticing where your body is in space. Do you know where that hand's reaching? Is it reaching towards the foot? Is it gone off to another side of the mat? Have we closed off the chest to try and reach the foot? Can we keep that chest nice and open?
Again, this is just part of the awareness of our body, awareness of our breath, and awareness of where we are in space. Last breath here. Slowly coming up. Double pigeon. Use your hands if you need, setting it up. Ankle above knee, knee above ankle. Any fleshy parts, any wiggles. And then trying to hinge forward. Again, this might be a little bit different from the other side. Just breathing into the stretch. Allowing it to release. Allowing your body to let go of any tension it's holding. Using that breath to help you do that. Slowly, we want to come all the way back towards our pigeon pose, lifting that torso up. That left leg is kind of where it needs to stay. This right leg, without hands, if we can, we want to try and straighten it and then take it all the way back. Pigeon, downward dog. Any last little wiggles, adjustments? And then we want to come all the way to seated. So setting your gaze forward, either jumping through, maybe walking, hopping, any way you want to get towards your bottom. And we're taking our Paschimottanasana. So one more forward fold, this time our closed leg version, heels on the ground, little micro bend in those knees, seat bones in the mat. Trying to draw that tailbone back, torso out of our hips. So we pull up and then forward. Hands drop wherever they can. Shoulder blades down the back. Making sure we haven't reached too far forward, that the shoulders are up by the ears and we're crunching into that neck. Maybe noticing you might get a little bit lower in the forward fold like this. Maybe you get a little bit higher in the forward fold like this. Just noticing, no judgment. It's a slightly different spot with stretching. We're going to take another active pose. So we're going to come into our Purvottanasana. So coming all the way out, sliding those hands behind you. So fingertips pointing towards your seat bones or a little bit turned out towards the side of the mat. Either straight leg version, coming all the way up, lifting onto the hips, trying to get the soles of the feet on the ground. Or bent knee version, soles of the feet on the ground, hips up, trying to stack those knees over the ankles. So if you're really far forward, kind of get wrists under shoulders, ankles under knees, tailbone draws up. And either that chin stays tucked in or the head's drawing back. So the crown of the head's pulling back. We're not kinking into the neck. The neck's still nice and active, pushing into those hands. One more full breath. Drop down onto your back. Hug those knees in, little rock side to side. Bridge pose. Soles of the feet on the ground, shoulder blades tucking underneath you, arms by your side. Gentle pressure into the feet, start to tilt that pelvis, and then lift up vertebra by vertebra. Slide those shoulders on again. So we want to be on those shoulder blades. We want to be on the back of the head, soles of the feet pushing in. But we want every little vertebra up the back, off the mat. So we're taking our yoga bridge. So like our gym bridge and our Pilates one. Shouldn't turn my head. So don't turn your head either to protect the neck. But our Pilates bridge, our gym bridge, we're kind of down here and everything's engaged. We're trying to draw those ribs towards our knees. Our yoga one, we want to take it a little bit further. So it's more of a back bend. Making sure those inner thighs drawing towards each other as well. Like we're trying to get those quads, the top of the thighs rolling in towards each other and down towards the ground.
So like a little roll of the thigh. Slowly coming down, walking those shoulders back out. Supta Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together, knees nice and wide, arms by your side. Drawing both knees back in. Keep the right knee, lengthen the left leg. Supine twist. Right knee all the way across the left, bumping onto that left side of the hip, left side of the leg. Trying to keep both your shoulder blades on the ground, maybe hand on the left knee or left thigh, gently drawing it towards the ground, and also gently pushing that thigh, that top hip away from the body. So as we do that, notice it lengthens the side waist. Maybe it creates a little bit of space in that lower back. Maybe that feels a little bit nicer. As you start to come towards the end of the practice, start to let that breath return to normal. Start to let that heart rate slow down. Letting that nervous system adjust. Moving back into that rest and digest state. Allowing the body to be nice and centered and relaxed. Coming back to center, we'll switch sides. Adjusting the pelvis if you need to. Right leg long, left leg in. Quick hug in of the left knee. And then taking left knee over towards the right. So bumping onto that right side of the hip, the leg, arms out to that T shape. Trying to keep those shoulder blades on the mat. And again, you might use that right hand on the right knee or thigh, gently drawing it towards the ground. But maybe also gently drawing that top hip, that leg away from the torso. So it's lengthening the side waist, the top and bottom, and creating a little bit of space in that lower back. So if you notice you're holding any residual tension, residual stress, maybe take a nice big deep breath in and full breath out. Get a nice deep full breath in. Opening the mouth and letting it all go. Slowly back through center. We'll take our inversions. We'll take a happy baby here. Drawing both knees in, little gentle rock side to side. And then gently coming to stillness as we take the knees out to the underarms. Take those ankles over the knees. And we're just reaching the hands for whatever they can grab. So trying to keep the shoulder blades, the tailbone on the ground. We might just be reaching for the backs of the thighs, maybe the shins, the pants, maybe the feet. So if we're reaching for the feet, try not to come up to reach for the feet. This is kind of maybe a little bit of stretch and come, making sure the shoulders are planted, the collarbone's wide, and that tailbone is pushing into the mat. So kind of the opposite to our bridge pose, right? We want every vertebra pushing into the mat here. You can gently add a rock side to side, taking it nice and slow. Maybe finding any little spots where there's a little knot or tension, feeling free to stay on that and giving it a little wiggle, a little massage. The little figure eight movements with those hips. And slowly releasing Shavasana. Legs nice and long, letting those toes roll out to either side. Hips nice and relaxed. Shoulder blades rolling underneath you, palms facing up. Gently closing the eyes. Letting the brow soften. Letting the breath slow. The mind quieten. And slowly with each breath, just letting the muscles in the body melt into the mat. Slowly starting to bring the awareness back into your body. If you'd like to stay in your Shavasana a little bit longer, feel free to stay here. Otherwise, slowly starting to bring some movement in, wiggling fingers and toes, gently taking a little bit bigger. Wrists, ankles might roll, head side to side, arms overhead maybe. And gently hugging the knees into the chest and rolling to your favorite side. Taking a little pause on your side, a little moment to check back in with the body. Check back in with the energy levels, with your breath. And gently making your way to a seated position, going all the way up. Hands on your lap for prayer at heart center. And finishing our practice with a namaste. Namaste. Thank you, yogis. Hope you enjoyed that practice of drawing the awareness inward. Just noticing how your body, your breath is day to day or in your practice, and maybe taking the notice when your body needs you to pull back, when it needs you to take those variations like the chaturanga on the knees, a baby cobra instead of an up dog, and just honoring what your body wants. So thank you. I'll hopefully see you again for a practice soon.